section in here concerning compensation, benefits, and conditions of work. There are other sections in here concerning grievance procedures, disciplinary procedures. Those items will all be subject to discussion.
If it's a collective bargaining issue, right?
Right.
Would it be appropriate for the chief to present to the board an executive session and identify the areas of this program that we need to be concerned about with respect to collective bargaining? Since we are about to venture into collective bargaining.
The other thing is, why would we go any further if we don't have the agreement of the union to embrace it and know what our exposure or cost is going to be?
Well, I think we need to see this presentation. I mean, we're just,
I would not want to start off in a negative way. They caution the board about thinking that this would not be something that would be embraced by the union. I think that the union has a positive view of this. They understand that accreditation would be beneficial to them because it would establish standards that are universal to all members of the department. There would be written policies that the members would have an opportunity to know and understand what their obligations were. And I would again want the board to keep an open mind in terms of the fact. I think this is an excellent program, and certainly I'm sure the chief would be happy to come in and give you a run-through. To sit down at this early stage and run through an extensive list of collective bargaining implications, I think really would stifle the process. And I would say that we should have that discussion.
I'm not sure that's not what I meant.
Well, that's what I heard.
No. He asked the chief to come in an executive session to discuss the impact that this accreditation process may have on collective bargaining.
I mean, right now, I don't know anything about this accreditation process short of what's on the yellow sheet here.
And it
I guess
may
so.
very well, it may very well be a great idea. It's something that we should be pursuing, but I don't want to. Right now, I feel as though I'm pursuing it in a vacuum, and depending upon
We're not in the vacuum.
depending upon the cost, depending upon what's going to be required, what we're going to need to know, and how on board the union. I mean, some of these things we could probably implement anyway, or should be implemented.
I'm not against
the resources.
I'm not against the program. In fact, I'm in
more
support of having appropriate documented policies, etc.
Right.
Right. And if this can help us, I think it's a great thing. But I don't know what it is.
Right.
Regardless of accreditation, we do have policies that are 15 years old. Times have changed, and we do need to address those. So, independent of whether we proceed with accreditation, there does need to be an extensive effort to bring us into the 21st century.
So you received a presentation on this matter, and you're impressed with it. Can we get that in presentation, or is there something that?
We can talk about bringing them into the next meeting.
Can I move on?
I don't have any objection.
Mr.
Yeah, I went through part of this in the town south of us. I think it would be a good idea to bring the chief in, to have him explain it. Things may have changed. I'm talking 12, 13 years ago, when Reading was going through it, they actually suspended the procedure because of the cost it was involving. Now, things may have changed since then. They were about 9 months into it, and then they dropped it. Its since has been brought back up again, and I think they have completed it now. But there is a cost. There is going to be a cost to it. But I would rather let the chief explain that, because I'm not up to date on what it is right now. But the town of Reading was 9 months into it, and they dropped it. And part of that was because of cost factor. But that may have changed.
But they since have went back to it and
I believe they since have started it again. I don't know if they've completed it yet.
Well, I think what Greg was saying is that whether you go with the certification from an official organization and go through the process that way, or you update your policies, you're going to spend some money anyway.
I'm not talking for or against it. I'm just saying that,
my concern is not, I'm leaning toward, if I think it's what it is, supporting something like this, but I don't know what it is, so.
one thing that I think makes this different, is we are working with a vendor in terms of having this all done electronically. So, in the past where things may have been copied and distributed, there will be a whole process, which this will all be aggregated into a program. So, I leave you to judge, but I was impressed with the 30 minutes that we spent on it, and I think I would hope that when you see it, you'll be similar. So,
Right.
thank you.
That it?
No,
No.
no, not so much.
I
So we
made a
wish-
mistake of turning the sheet over.
That's okay. I've provided an updated list of warrant articles, and in addition to the Route 62 culvert, the Community Planning Commission has submitted a proposal to amend the zoning bylaw as it relates to floodplains. They've suggested it for the April town meeting, although they've also indicated that would be appropriate if it's not ready to go to the October town meeting. And again, it's based upon the newly revised FEMA flood maps that have been issued. Two other quick items that I do want to touch upon.
Going back to town meeting for a minute. In the special town meeting, schools sped, you've got, they haven't yet asked for money, right?
They've asked for it.
Second is, I don't know where they are in the time frame yet, because I haven't heard much with respect to this high school project. But I'm guessing that, you know, there's a possibility that they might be looking for money. Especially when the meeting is gonna go out into June. So, I guess maybe at our next meeting, we'll see if we can, maybe they have an update on that, but. He wasn't too excited.
No, no, they made a secondary school.
Yeah.
Right.
If you'd like me to move along, there's one thing I do want to address, it's not on the list before I get to number 6. And that is the EPA is in the process of updating their stormwater regulations. You've read about it. We are subject to that. So
Right.
this is a case of the stormwater regulations becoming more stringent, and it would affect North Reading. There may be a cost involved, we don't know at this point. But the pages of regulations are being reviewed, and we have comments that will make to the EPA by March 31st.
You're aware that, you know, on the wastewater committee, when the rules came out that we had to have a stormwater committee, we merged the two into one.
Sure. And I know
And that committee is active.
right, and the town engineer is working through this process. The last thing I have is, they've given a heads up at the last meeting concerning collections in the water department and trash fees. And I think it's no surprise that we have a number of accounts that are behind in trash collection and water service. Just to really set forth the numbers, we have 511 past due accounts in trash, which is over $5, and less than $5 in that consideration, because there's a lot of little amounts that are out there. But 511 past due trash, 410 water accounts are overdue, and then we have 412 combined trash and water. Overall, these represent about 30% of the total customers who receive water and trash services. The amounts that we have to date, including interest, is trash is about $90,000, and the water department is about $193,000 past due fees and interest. Certainly at this point, I think it's appropriate to move, because if we look tonight, we will end the year with deficits in these accounts, and they will certainly affect the town's finances at the end of the year in a very adverse way. So I've included a couple of letters that we have put together, and we as the DPW staff, the director and myself and his staff, we've sat down and we've drafted up letters that we progressive in its position. The first letter is draft first collections letter, and this would be sent to individuals who don't have a history of having late payments. And it would remind them of the fact that they have an outstanding balance, perhaps they've overlooked it. We've indicated to the customers that the failure to pay the fees will result in our programs running into a deficit at the end of the year and will result negatively on their account's financial situation. We've also noted that the town does have a right to publish their minutes, and we're not there yet, but we certainly have that right. And we also have a right under the law to terminate services, and we certainly aren't there. We don't expect to be there, but we do need to be firm in our position. And then finally, we requested that either the resident or the business make payment to the town within 14 days. So that's the first letter. The second letter, which is addressed to Joseph Citizen, is similar, but we've highlighted a couple of areas that we feel are noteworthy. The first is that we've indicated that the town is aware of the fact that there've been a history of late payments in prior fiscal years. And if individuals believe that there's some type of tax advantage that's received by having this added to their tax bill as a lien, we're reminding them that in fact that's not correct. They may claim it, doesn't mean it's necessarily legal. And we want them to be aware of the fact that the town believes that if that's the case, it's not legal. And then finally, we've gone on to state that the town has a right to again terminate service, which we wish not to do. We also, if we're contacted by the Internal Revenue Service, we will have a right to disclose information to them. And again, we have a right to make their name, address, and amount owed public. I'd like to work in getting these letters out with your permission shortly. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done just because of the number of accounts. The fact that we have separate record keeping for trash and water. So we'll need to print the notices, and we'll need to get them stuff with through mail. And there's a time and cost to that, but there's a time and a cost. The time and cost in letting this go without action is more severe. And you will remember that we did incur a deficit in the water account at the end of last fiscal year. My recollection, it was under $40,000. And on the trash side, I believe we had a small surplus. But if these trends continue, those will be not occurring in fiscal year 2000.
Very good question. I paid one of my water, I think it was the water bill late, because after we went through this cost-saving effort of combining the tax bill with one of the other bills, and they had different due dates, I separated them, and then I forgot about paying the bill until I realized I hadn't paid the bill and it was late. So my question is, I can see two reasons for the bills not getting paid. One is the economy is way down and people are just tight on money and they figure they can get by with that with minimal penalty. Two is that they've fallen in the trap I fell in on the first round with the dual bill. What percentage increase over last year? You don't know.
I know. If you're going to ask me how many people owe $5 or less, and I can tell you there's a large number.
No, it wouldn't be $5 or less. In other words, if I failed to pay my bill on time because I'm waiting for the bill to come and it hasn't come because I haven't looked and saw that it already